Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Virtual Sessions presented by the DJ Sessions. I'm your host, Darren, and right now I'm in the virtual studios in Seattle, Washington, and coming in all the way from NYC, we have Michael Anthony on the show today. Michael, how you doing today?
Good, Darren. How's everything going with you?
I'm good. You know, it's just wrapping up the summer here, getting ready to get into fall. Super excited to be going to ADE next month, and also Gold Rush in Arizona.
I actually saw that. I was watching one of your other interviews, and I heard you mention you were going to ADE. That's got to be insane.
Yeah, we just actually got our press. Yeah, we just got our press credentials for it as well. It's my first time ever going to Europe. It's my first time ever going to ADE or something as big as ADE, and we're super honored to actually be that we got our press credentials and getting over there and being able to kind of hobnob with the rich and famous, and hang out on the red carpet.
You got to get your sleep leading up to that because
it's that's the whole thing is we're trying to work on how this pattern's going to work out. I'm taking my girlfriend, one of our resident DJs, and my best friend's going to meet up with us over there as well. So it's kind of like, hey guys, it's going to be work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But come Saturday and Sunday, and we got a couple days off before we leave, to kind of go see the city and go have some fun. But super excited for that. And we're actually, I have a partnership that I can't announce yet because it hasn't been officially made, but I can say that we are looking to do on-site red carpet interviews and live streaming from ADE as well with some, let's just say the partner is a pretty big name. Most people know the name, but I can't say anything about it yet because it hasn't been finalized on the front end.
Congratulations. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. Have you ever been to ADE before?
I haven't. And it's like, nowadays, I go to Miami when they have the conference just because it's so close to New York. So for me, that's kind of been where I've been trying to get some of the networking in. And also, you know how it is too. You get to see some legendary sets. What are the new tracks coming out? All that. And nowadays too, with like the Spotify analytics and a lot of these tools, you can look at and see where a lot of your streams are coming from. And like I have a decent amount of listeners like in the Netherlands. And I had someone say like, you should really try to get to ADE, maybe just to network. So I think sometime soon, maybe next year, I'll definitely try and make it out there.
Yeah, if everything goes according to plan, it looks like for the next 2 to 5 years after that, we'll be at ADE, WMC, South by Southwest, and IMS.
I was going to say IMS is the other big one too. That I feel like some of the labels that I released with in the past, they were doing like showcases, and they were like, hey, like we would love to get you out to IMS and maybe get you on a showcase. So I'm always open for opportunities like that, without a doubt. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Well, enough about us and the DJ sessions, what we're up to. Let's talk about what Michael Anthony's up to. You just had a release come out titled Something Better. Tell us a little bit about that track, what it means to you.
So this is the second track that I put out on Pink Star Black. And it's pretty cool, honestly, because Pink Star Black is one of the labels underneath Syrup Music Group, and that's basically owned and operated by EDX and his whole team. And I've always been a huge fan of EDX's. And funny enough, this year in Miami, basically, we were down there, we were doing the rounds. One of my friends was playing a few parties. I had to show up to a few of them as well. And we went to go get breakfast at one of the hotels right on the Strip. And you know how it is, like you could be walking down the Strip and literally like pass by Steve Aoki or whoever. We like bumped into like Neo randomly on Collins like one year. This is when he was doing like all like the big vocal house tracks. But so we're having breakfast, and 2 tables over, EDX was in there. And we literally just went over and I was like, hey, I would love to maybe send you and the team some music. So we just started talking. He gave me his email. And then we were going back and forth on Instagram for a little bit. And I was like, hey, I shot your team those tracks over. Let me know what you think. And like immediately the team came back. They're like, we love these. We want to sign them. So Something Better, like you said, that just came out maybe almost like a week and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And it's doing really well. It's already been played by EDX in his radio shows. Nora En Pure has played it on Purified Radio, which is huge because I'm also in love with her style and a lot of the tracks that she makes. Caillou and Albert played it, which is pretty cool because they're legendary in the trance community. So it's cool to see, like, right after it being released, so many people being receptive to it and so many artists playing it. So that's the second of a few releases coming out with Syrup. So I'm pretty excited to see just kind of how this trends, because the first track was called Gargantua, and that got some really good record play as well. So looks like we have a good trend going and getting a lot of support early on.
And if you could describe your music in 3 words or less, it doesn't have to be more than 3 words, 3 words or less, how would you describe it?
I would say definitely melodic. I feel like a lot of the tracks nowadays, they've gotten like very like tech heavy to the point where it's a lot of stripped back melodies. A lot of stuff I've been trying to make is very melodic based in the breaks for sure. Um, I would say melodic. I would say driven. Like it's always for the dance floor. It's always for like with a DJ in mind, especially when it comes to like the arrangement of the tracks. How would this work when a DJ is playing it, when they're mixing it in? Is the break too long? Like just trying to keep people engaged. And I would also say just kind of like emotional, just because one of the coolest things is like when you play a track out and you see people like really, really feeling it. Like it's not just like a filler track where they're dancing and then they're drinking, but like when you see that like people are almost kind of interested, like what is this track, or it really just kind of grabs their attention and kind of triggers an emotion. So I would say that those are really, if I had to wrap it up with 3 words, that's how I would describe them.
Awesome. And how would you define success as a DJ producer? Is that a Beatport top 10 hit, sold out tour? What are your thoughts on this?
There's probably a lot of ways I would define it. I think I don't want to make it about other people, but I think like seeing the track being played and supported by other DJs is definitely cool, right? I wouldn't say it's important though, because if you start making the music for other people, you might be making tracks that sound like other DJs just to get plays, and you might kind of stray away from what you're doing as a project as a whole. So I just feel like if I could come back to a track like 6 months later and listen to it and still like it and still feel like it works well, that's what I would feel like is a successful release. Just because there are some ideas, even like when I'm in the creative process, like if I lay something out, because I'll always put everything in MIDI and just like a basic keyboard, and then I'll try to just play with it and develop the synths and develop the sounds. I could come back the next day and just be like, this is driving me crazy. This is trash. I'm scrapping the whole project. So I feel like if I could finish something, put it out, release it, and then I could come back to it like 6 months later and say this is still like like a solid track. I enjoy playing it. To me, that's what I would define it as. Because like there were a lot of remixes that I did in the past that weren't official releases, but I would send them to a lot of my DJ friends, a lot of the guys that have radio shows on like BPM, and they would play them in the shows. And I could go back and listen to some of those old episodes and say like this track still would work perfectly. Like there's a great track in my opinion. And to me, that's probably what a successful track is, because if I hate it like a few months later, then I know it was just kind of like an in the moment thing and just got it out of the system and that was it.
What's the longest time you've ever consecutively spent working on a track?
Honestly, like there's tracks that I'm still working on that I've been working on for months and months. So I'll let you know when I actually finish working on it. But it's like, I feel like nowadays too, with how easily you can go in and out of the system, right? Like I'm in Logic, for example. I could be traveling, tweaking things. I could be at home tweaking things. I could wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and tweak something. So like, I'll give you an example. I'm doing, um, I'm making like a bootleg for my sets of an older track, an older vocal that I liked, and I played it out this past Saturday, this past Friday, and like something simple, like I thought the vocal was way too high. Let me pull the vocal back. But a week ago, if I didn't play it out, I might have maybe just put that up for free and just said like, here's something, like download it, like let me know if you like it, or even scrap the vocal and put the track out to some A&R and see if they're willing to release it. And then I play it out and I'm like, you know what? I got to take it back. I got to strip back vocals. I got to fix the pads and the breakdown. So I feel like, and I don't think it's a great thing, but I could probably work on tracks forever. But it's also kind of cool because it allows me to just table things at some point, and maybe I'll strip a melody out and start something new, and it might be more applicable to another idea. So I could work on things for a pretty long time. So I think it's nice too when the labels will give me deadlines. Like if I'm working on, like for example, when I worked with Stonebridge, I did 2 remixes with him, and it's like, hey, here's the date, so let's try and have it wrapped up by then. So that's always nice to have too.
Do you think the audience knows that you're actually testing your material out on them? Or is it something
probably not. I don't think so.
Because I was talking with I think it was Benny Benassi years ago. And he's like, yeah, I test out a lot of tracks on the crowds when I'm out playing, and then I'll bring them back in. I'll tweet, just like what you said.
That's the best part too, because you'll see what part, like let's say like the drop hit really, really hard and it worked really well at the drop. Mm-hmm. maybe you just didn't, maybe it dropped too long or something and you got to get into a next breakdown or something. Like it just gives you some visual feedback as to what the overall response is. Because another thing that I found too is like you can send your tracks out to whoever it is, like other artists, A&R, to your friends. It's a totally different type of feedback, and it's so much more like visceral when you play it out and you're seeing exactly what's going on. Like if some, like half the time I send it to my friends, they're like, let me wait till I get in the studio tomorrow. It's like, well, yeah, if you listen to it in the perfect environment with like the tuners the right way, with all your soundproofing on the walls, like you're gonna say like that from a foundation standpoint, fundamentally it's a good track, right? But you could play it out and it could be garbage. So I don't think the crowd knows you're testing it, but it's nice to see like, yeah, like a surprise reaction, because they might get a feeling that like, wow, this like might not be a finished product, but it's still pretty cool.
And that is essential for a DJ to be getting that kind of crowd feedback. What I noticed when we first started doing our live streaming show back in 2009, 2010, a lot of the DJs would come to me and say, Darren, I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not because I have no audience. We had no one in the studio. We'd be like in my bedroom. There might be like 10 or 15 people that might be around the corner, but it wasn't a big,
Yeah.
so they didn't know. And it took them a while to warm up. So a lot of them were just in front of the decks and they got their headsets on. They're doing their thing and there's no response from them. I'm like, you got to liven it up a little bit more. I'd go to interview them and they weren't ready for it. They're like, hey, this is so-and-so. And I'd be like, and they go, hi. I'm like,
Yeah.
God,
Not much to
come
work
on,
with,
come on,
right?
give me a little bit more here now. Work with me here. But because that audience participation wasn't there. And I always told them, I said, if you look like you're having fun, the audience at home is going to be having fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you go back to some of
another thing too that I was going to say that I found is like now with like social media, it is a little bit easier to kind of gauge feedback too. So like I'll give you an example where when I was making a lot of remix, like especially in quarantine, like when I was just like, let me just make some remixes, like who knows if like I'm going to play out again. I'm like, I just want to work on some vocals that I think are cool. I would send them to like Stonebridge, who has a show on BPM every Saturday night, Stonebridge Saturdays. And he would play all my remixes. And that would be cool for me just because while I can't be out playing tracks and getting a reaction from a crowd, when they upload a lot of these episodes now and they're hosted online or they're on YouTube or on SoundCloud, Mixcloud, whatever, at least in the comment section, you get some type of feedback from fans like, oh my God, this remix is great. Like who did this? Or like that remix sucks. Do not play that remix again. So it's cool because you can still kind of get that feedback. So to see that in a time where like we didn't have that live reaction was also kind of cool too.
Yeah, that's going way back to one of my first original broadcast television shows in 2001. One of the key things why I wanted the .com, why I wanted our website up, was so that we could go live into a chat room while our shows were on broadcast television, albeit they were on at 1:30 in the morning. But we wanted to be on there and say, meet the producers and chat with us in the chat room while we're watching the show. That was kind of way ahead of live streaming, in the sense of things. But yeah, that chat room experience is where you would start seeing people get that feedback and go, okay, I know I'm doing it. Or, hey, my cousin's in here. Or, hey, so-and-so's in. Hey, thanks for coming in. Shout out to so-and-so for coming in the chat room. And you can start getting that interactivity there, which has just been phenomenal to see the rise of so many more people accepting live streaming, doing a show for 10 years and people saying, you do a DJ show online, why would I want to watch that? And I'm like, okay, have you ever listened to the radio before?
Right.
Or they
say it's like
okay,
that natural evolution. Like it was like radio, podcast, like the podcast world exploded, and now it's like take it one step further. Like, don't you want to see the interaction, see the person like that, and it's more personal connection too.
Exactly. And then the next bastion we'll talk about it in a little bit is looking into the whole VR and AR and XR world as well.
The metaverse is coming.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But do you ever sometimes make music completely out of your own genre that never gets released?
There will be times. A lot of the stuff that I do make, right? Like I was saying, like I'll write in a keyboard. So like I'll open up the DAW and I'll start just writing in piano because I feel like that's probably the best place to start. But what I'll do is like I'll throw on videos sometimes in the background or movies, almost like I'm scoring like a situation, like what's the emotion here, and that usually tends to wind up being the break of the track, just because that's where like the meat of everything is coming together. Like what's the overall emotion, right? What's going on in that scene or in that movie that I'm like just trying to pull something from. And sometimes those projects like never wind up turning into like a dance track per se. But to your point, like I could just like I have a bunch of files that are just like these orchestral like productions, if you want to call it that, where it just turns into basically like a string section, pianos, like some lower strings, some bass, and it's just kind of like a cool, moody type of track. So like I feel like maybe if one day I just rounded up those and I had like 20 or 25 of those, I could probably release like an album of just orchestral work. You know what I mean? But typically, when I set down to start something, I usually get it to that point where it's always like within the genre that I'm trying to stay in. But I do feel like nowadays too, people get segmented into genres so quickly, right? Like if you come out with a track and it's like a piano house or a tech house track, well, he's a tech house producer. It's like, well, maybe I just made that week because that's what I was feeling. You know what I mean? So I do feel like nowadays with the genres, it is kind of crazy because at some point when you go out into a forum and you're speaking in something like this or even online, it's like I feel like the question always comes up like, well, what genre are you producing? What type of DJ are you? What type of producer? And it's like at some point you just want to be able to say like I just make music that I enjoy first and foremost, and I make music that I feel like will work well in a set. So I think that the whole genre situation kind of got out of control. But to your point, if I ever am outside of a genre, like strictly a stripped back type of an acoustic environment, it's usually because I can't get out of that writing stage and I just keep building and building and building. So,
I frequently would tell my DJs when they'd sign up and when we bring our resident DJs on, I said, you can use some of the top level genres as the descriptive terms of what you play, but I'm not going to go into the sub genres.
yeah.
I'm like, no, don't do that. But then I just started saying, okay, whatever. If you want to say you played acid funk breaks, whatever,
Yeah.
okay, fine. I'll make that category up for you as long as it's a real category. But you go to Wikipedia and it has all those subgenres. And years ago, because this is probably 10 years ago, I was at this guy's house and he had he showed me online. It's a website. It started out with techno. It was like a bubble, like a bubble map. And it had techno and it had house. And then it showed how everything else spun out of everything else and kind of grew. It was just a beautiful diagram of electronic music and showing how it all kind of started, how big each one was. And it wasn't until just recently I was on the 1001 track list site. And I think they do a 1-year comprehensive report of what gets reported on their site. And on the back end, I think tech house was kind of one of the larger genres. It was tech house, and then trance, I believe. Don't quote me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that was with the last report came out. But it was just a nice thing to see that organic chart being made with people that are submitting shows and how they gatekeep everything there too. So it's not just everyone just
to like see how some of the genres move too, though, because like I know we keep coming back to tech house just because I feel like everybody's making that nowadays. But like the tech house that exists now, for example, that's not like 10 years ago. If you were like giving me a tech house track or a tech house album, like the tech house now is very different. Even some of the trance is very different, where I feel like 5-10 years ago, trance is like most of it was in like the 130 and up range. Now you have some more pulled back, like slower tracks. So it's interesting to see like how some of these genres are evolving, how some of them are like almost collaborating and come together too. Like that's kind of interesting too. Like going back to the Something Better example, when I made that, you know how it is now too. Like when you release, like the label wants to know what the genre is because they need to tag it to something in Beatport. Like it's all siloed out, right? So Something Better is a track that's in that melodic house and techno realm. I would describe a lot of the stuff I do as progressive as well too, but there's still trance DJs sporting it because of like those melodic tendencies and like the euphoric breakdowns. And it's cool to just see how sometimes those tracks can kind of transcend the genres and just be worked in different situations in certain DJ sets.
Is there something you'd like to say to new and up and coming producers to watch out for when it comes to making their career successful?
I mean, I would just say that in the beginning, you have to just be like a sponge, like absorb everything, right? Because especially now, there's so much information out there. If you try to look at only one way of making music or going about the process, or you're taking one person's advice, that's not really the best way to advance yourself, and you're not going to probably see like rapid growth. I would say like look at some DJs, look at some producers that you admire, and go back and like almost look at like what their journey looked like. Who were some of the labels that they were signing to? Who are the people that they were collaborating with, and who are some of the people that they're producing now? And I feel like for me, one thing that I always found enjoyment in is like finding out what people's stories were. So like, you know, when you find out like how did Axwell start to blow up? How did Ingrosso and Angelo meet each other? Like what's Eric Prydz' background? Like those types of stories for me were always cool just because it gave context into like the building blocks of their career. So I would say in the beginning, like look to people you admire, see what they did that was successful. Don't always rely on just that because there's a lot of people who, you know, luck is a huge part of it too. But I just feel like more context into like the building blocks of someone's career and success, that's huge. And then I would always say just like the networking part is huge too. So just because you go out to a nightclub doesn't mean you're going to meet like some, you know, superstar A&R guy who's going to sign all your stuff tomorrow. But you might meet like the bartender who knows like the opener, who knows someone at the label, and they just enjoy hanging out with you and grabbing a drink with you. So they'll invite you to other parties, and it's just a great way to like one meet like-minded people because you always want to be surrounded with people who have the same interests as you, and two, if they can help, you know, further your career a little bit, they might have something good to say about you to someone that's in a way higher position. So I would say just, you know, absorb everything like a sponge, always be open to different comments and different techniques and advice from others. And I would say the networking aspect is huge too.
Who's been your biggest influence when it comes to your career as an artist, and why?
I mean, I would say like my earliest influences would probably be like, if you remember those, my dad, he used to always listen to like disco and dance music and all that stuff. So we would be like driving to school and he would always have like, there's a radio station over here at KTU, and they would have all dance music on. At night, they would have, sometimes they would broadcast live from Sound Factory. So you would hear like those live mixes. So that's kind of like almost how I was introduced to just like, what's a DJ? Like what type of music is this? I just knew it was like fast and like energetic, and this is like got me going, you know what I mean? And I remember we were driving to I think we were driving to school one day, and like One More Time by Daft Punk was on the radio. And this is like way before Spotify, way before Shazam. Like we didn't know what the track was, but we're like, holy crap, like we have to figure out what that song was. And like, I remember one day he came home and he's like, I called into the radio station. Like they've had me on the radio for like 45 seconds and I was asked what it was, and they told me it's a song by Daft Punk. So like we were freaking out, but I just knew like that type of music was unreal. And then that kind of spiraled because we would always take, at this time I wasn't living in Manhattan. I was living like in a suburb right outside of Manhattan. And we would always take a trip in like around the holidays. And at this time, Tower Records was in Times Square. And this was like anything you wanted in the world was in Tower Records. It was like 3 stories, imports, you know, had vinyl, you had CDs. It was wild. And we came across the, if you remember, Ministry of Sound used to do an annual compilation. I think they still do it. Like, yeah. And it was like unreal. It was like the Ministry of Sound. I think it was 2007, and you had tracks like Party All the Time by Sharam was on there. It's Too Late by Dirty South and Evermore. But one of the tracks was Proper Education by Eric Prydz. So like I just had that on repeat forever, and like it would get to Proper Education. I'm like, this track is absolutely insane. And then, you know, this is like when you're be able to find music on all these different streaming sites and all that stuff. So we would just Google, you know, I want to find all these Eric Prydz tracks. I want to know what's going on. And I just feel like through that, like something as simple as just like listening to the radio on the way to school as a kid and always being around that type of dance music that started with like disco and like old school types of dance, just kind of just spiraled and sparked an interest and like wound up to just falling into it because we were in Tower Records. So I would feel like from a production standpoint, that's a lot of the influences that I feel like I pull from. Career-wise, it's just, you could look to so many people nowadays. Like, just like, I keep going back to Prydz, but the way that he's evolved his career from like just doing like pretty minimal melodic shows, and now he's doing these, you know, hollow shows with these massive visuals. Like, it's really cool to see the evolution of an artist like that. And even someone as simple as like, I mean, not as simple, but even someone like Tiesto, like I used to love the In Search of Sunrise compilations too. Like those were some of the earliest influences as well. and you just see the way that he's evolved and like always just been at the forefront of like a certain sound. Like it's really cool to see these guys move through the evolution. So those are like, that's the kind of time period and the types of artists that were just blowing up when I was younger, just like very intrigued as to what's going on in this dance music world.
Absolutely. I remember those times very well. So do you think, after what you just said, and thank you for the insight on how much of an influence your father had on you as a child growing up listening to music, did that also inspiration transpire into you creating At Night and Escape?
I think so. I just think that if you look to some of the playlists that I made in the past too, like I'll always pull older songs on there too, like Missing, the Todd Terry remix is like a track that I absolutely love. But any like older disco songs, like I used to listen to like Thelma Houston, like Tavares, Bee Gees, like he had a huge vinyl collection too. So I remember we would go into the basement and just see tons of vinyls, and like you would pull out one and it would be like the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, and it's just like some of those older songs you put them on today, and it's like there's not a lot of people making music like that. So yeah, anytime I'm making a playlist, and I have a few more coming out, like some Spotify takeovers, every once in a while I'll throw in like an older track just to spice it up and say, like, I always make it a point to say these, I'm not playing all these tracks in my sets right now, but there's definitely some influences in there as well.
Awesome. And tell us about, what was the most memorable or best experience you've ever had behind the DJ booth?
Something pretty cool was when I was probably about like 20. This is like right when I started like making a lot of like bootleg remixes. I got the chance to play at Nikki Beach in Cabo San Lucas for spring break. And that was just like absolutely mind blowing because we were like reaching out to the artist liaison before we went out. And I'm just like, I can't believe I'm about to go to Cabo San Lucas. Like I've never been to Cabo San Lucas. Like this, I feel like I'm getting treated like A-list celebrity right now. Like they were like, champagne's waiting in the room for you. If you need anything at the pool, let us know. And my buddy took a trip down with me at the time, and he's just like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And when we showed up, and it was just the coolest like open air DJ booth overlooking like the famous like Cabo arches in the background, and just like it just felt like every single track I played, like it was like a pool party, and it just felt like the pool was just going absolutely mental every single track that I played. So that was definitely pretty cool. And I would say something similar to that is I got to play Superior Ingredients in Brooklyn, which it used to be Output, which won tons of awards for sound systems, some of the events that they book, some of the parties that they've thrown. So it's a pretty like legendary club in the area. And I got to play that a few months ago, and that room, that sound system was absolutely unreal as well. But I mean, I could even go into just nights that I've had being a New York kid, going out in the scene, like not even being behind the DJ booth, like getting to see Danny Tenaglia play for like 10 hours straight at like Pasha in New York when it was still open on like, Christmas Eve. Like there were just so many times where it's like being a kid in New York City, being able to go out and having access to some of these legendary DJs like Wednesday through Sunday, I just feel lucky to be able to experience those. So when I have my own nights where I'm having like an out of body experience, like this is absolutely sick. That's kind of cool too.
Do you have any crazy dance moves that you do when you're up on stage or on the dance floor?
No, I'm a pretty simple like back and forth type of guy vibing out, but there's a lot of crazy dance moves nowadays. You got people doing the Fortnite stuff in the crowd and some weird stuff. Like there's TikTok dances. There's enough of that going on that I don't need to get involved in.
And do you prefer bigger crowds or smaller crowds?
Honestly, like I wouldn't say it's why I prefer one over the other. I just love when you have a crowd that is like understanding the music. And I feel like you kind of get that with some of the smaller, more intimate, vibey crowds. So in a roundabout way, I guess the answer is smaller crowds. Because like I was DJing last Friday at the Williamsburg Hotel rooftop, and this is an open air setup too. You have the whole skyline of New York City behind you. Like it was absolutely unbelievable. I put videos up on my Instagram. Like it looks unreal. And it was a pretty packed night for the venue. But overall, I would say like if you put maybe like 200 people in there, it's absolutely jammed, right? So by no means is it a massive, massive crowd, but I almost feel like you can connect with the dance floor a little bit more because like you're looking up from the booth and you're locking eyes with individuals everywhere you look. It's less of like a massive sea of people.
Mhm.
Whereas like I've been in the booth at like Pasha, for example, when it was still open, and it just looks like a massive sea of people, and it's almost just like a wave like flowing with the music, and it's like you might not get that personal interaction. Whereas when you play some of the smaller venues and you like literally look up and connect with someone, and you're like, holy shit, like what I'm doing is like literally making that guy or girl or whoever feel a very certain way right now. So that's pretty cool about the smaller crowds.
You know, we used to have a club here called the Sea Sound Lounge, and it was a very small, intimate club with some big names that would come by. I mean, I think it was maybe 130, maybe 130, but you were right. No matter where you were at, from the bar to the DJ, you were never more than 10 feet, 20 feet away at the most from the
Yeah.
DJ. And it just, you felt you were right there with them. So I kind of know what you mean when you get that kind of packed room. It feels like there's 300-400 people in the room,
Yeah.
but really there's only like about 100-115, maybe 200 people in the room
Something
total.
that's actually really cool too, from a venue perspective, that I've only seen once. Like I'm sure it exists other places in the world, but when we were down in Miami, for WMC for the conference this past year, a buddy of mine played at this new club called Le Rouge. It's in Wynwood, so it's outside of actual South Beach, and it's crazy because about like a month before I went down, I was saying to someone, I was like, New York City scene, like it needs something like kind of crazy. Like I feel like a lot of the clubs are dying right now. And I was like, it would be really sick if there was a place that had the DJ booth right in the middle of the dance floor and everybody was around the DJ. And then we go down and I walk into this club, Le Rouge in Wynwood, and it is a circle DJ booth slammed right in the middle of the entire venue. So like you had tables all around you, crowd all around you packed.
Wow.
And it's like having the DJ be a part of the actual environment rather than like worship like on a stage. It was the coolest thing to see because people are patting this guy on the back, like people are passing him drinks. He's passing a bottle into the crowd. It was like everybody was just on the same wavelength. So that was kind of one of the coolest things that I've seen from a venue perspective that I would love to see more and more of too.
Yeah, we're working with a production company. We just launched a new division of our company down in Phoenix, Arizona. So we're going into that market a little bit more. And one of the clubs that they're working with down there is a concert in the round. The stage is in the middle of it, but not they won't be able to get up on the stage unless we let people get up on the stage and dance with the DJ. But it's all in the round.
Mm-hmm.
All the seating and everything's it's pretty dope. I'm like,
You see it in all different types like of production and music. Like people are trying to be like Kanye, for example, when he did his tour and he's got the floating stage over the crowd. It's like at some point people get to a point where they're like, oh, been there, seen that, like done that. I like, what are you gonna do to really wow me? And it's like when people come out with something new like that, that's why like when I'm talking about Prids with the Hollow show and just like a lot of these immersive experiences. Like even if you look at like Tale of Us right now and what they're doing from a visual standpoint and with their music, the entire Afterlife imprint's absolutely unbelievable. They just put on a show at the Brooklyn Mirage this past weekend that I went to, and it's like it was absolutely insane.
I gotta tell you, if I was wondering if you were gonna bring it up or not, and I was gonna bring it up. I was at the Brooklyn Mirage last year for my birthday. First time ever going there. One of our resident DJs, Lucy Tudor, was opening up for Lane 8 and La Youth. And I went in that place and it's kind of ruined my whole home nightclub experience here in Seattle. I don't even want to go out in nightclubs really that much anymore in Seattle. I'm like, I want to go to places like the Brooklyn Mirage. I loved it. The experience,
and what they've done last season to this season too is they've completely re-renovated, and there was the visual screen behind the DJ. They took that and made it this entire wraparound experience where it's probably 4 times the size of what it used to be. Wow. And like what they can do from a visual perspective is absolutely unbelievable. Like I was just there for Tale of Us, and Tale of Us is, they're kind of on the cutting edge. You have Carmine and you have Mateo, and Mateo has a side project called Animo where he's delving into like the NFT realm now. So they were putting the NFTs on the screen, making it super immersive. And then I was also there for Nora En Pure was there. She did her Purified show about a month ago, and I was there with all the guys from Syrup. So that was cool to see some of the label mates and everyone that I've been working with in person get to actually witness the crowd from the backstage perspective was unreal. So yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about top venues right now, in America. That's definitely on the map right now.
Yeah, I just shivers go down my spine after
Gotta
we were
get
there.
back. You gotta book
Probably,
a ticket and come back for a
I
show
think
soon.
we had to get in there at like 6:30. Her set was on at like 7 or
Yeah.
7:30. Our plane landed at 5:30, so we had to get from JFK to our Airbnb in Brooklyn, and then we were only about a mile from
You're close, but
there.
in
We were
New
really
York, it
close.
takes you 2 hours to go a mile.
Yeah, so we jumped in, we got over there, and we were at that. I don't think we left till like 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I just always felt like there was always something going on, always something changing, and always making people there were so nice and so cool too. Like,
Yeah.
we're just kicking not only the wait staff, but the people that were attending. I was very welcoming, very open, and like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, want to get a drink? Hey, and it just was
Yeah, I gotta
just
say,
such an
it's not
awesome
a place
experience.
where like you're gonna feel like pushed around or like you're getting
Yeah.
stepped on. Like it's always like it's a positive vibe when you're there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because it's open air and people are just happy that it's summertime and the sun is out. I just think people go in there with the right attitude, and that kind of just cultivates the perfect atmosphere to like go and have a good time. And it's like you couple that with like the amazing acts that they book and the music that they play, and it's a great experience.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of experiences, on the side of bad experiences, have you ever had somebody screw up a performance of yours? And if so, tell us what happened. How'd you get out of that?
What do you mean screw up a performance?
You ever have somebody spill a drink on the decks or knock the decks
Oh,
over or anything crazy?
So back in the day, like this is like probably in like when I'm in college, we did this place called Elements, and it was basically like it's like a restaurant during the day. It's pretty big, probably fits like 200-300 people. Really, really long restaurant, got a bar on one side, and it had the perfect like back area to basically set up like an entire DJ setup. So me and a few of the guys that we had like equipment in the area, we would basically throw this party once a month. We brought in all our equipment, and I'm not just saying like just CDJs and a mixer, but like we had trussing, we had lights, we had everything. Like we rented like CO2 cannons like a few times, like everything. But this is also one of the places where like people could walk right. Like it was really cool because there was a front area, so the crowd's in front of you, but then behind you, you could probably fit another 100 people too. So you did have people all over the place. And there were a few times where people were passing around a Patron bottle because someone's somehow got a hold of the actual bottle, and they're just pouring stuff all over the place. And like, luckily, thank goodness, Pioneer makes the CDJs almost like indestructible at this point. So I've seen, Patron go into this to the actual wheel, the jog wheel of the CDJ. I've seen like the CO2 cannon shoot down on it because somebody like set it up the wrong way. But luckily, not to the point where like music's cut out and things go awry. But I definitely had like a mini heart attack in the middle of it happening. So I've seen some of that for sure.
You mentioned earlier that sometimes you like to put on movies in the background and kind of create tracks with that as your inspiration. If you could score a Hollywood movie, which director would you want to work with? Who would have your preference?
Chris Nolan.
That was quick. That was
no brainer. No brainer. Literally would score any of his movies.
Awesome. I can't remember. Are they making? Is there a second part to Tenet coming out? Is there a sequel?
I don't know if there was a second part to Tenet, but I still got to figure out what happened in the first. So they got to give me time to like rewatch that and figure out what was going on. But I did see he's doing. He has Cillian Murphy, and they're doing Oppenheimer. It's like the story about the atomic bomb. So that's gonna probably be absolutely unreal because anytime he comes to the table with his idea for a movie, first off, the cast is going to be absolutely stacked. Mm-hmm. And he just like his visual production too. He's usually getting like Hans Zimmer scoring it, so I'm probably out of the job. But he just comes full force with like everybody. So the guy's absolute legend.
Yeah. And we were talking just a little bit earlier. I mentioned it, but I wanted to touch base on it. Have you done anything? I know you got a Twitch channel because I followed you today with a couple of our channels, but have you done anything in virtual reality?
So I haven't done anything in virtual reality. I did see that Pioneer created, like, if you have the Oculus, you can, I forget what the app is actually called, but like
Tribe.
You can download. Yeah, is that it? Where you could download like the actual, like a DJM 900 with the CDJs, and it's like, I'm dying to get my hands on that and figure it out.
Yeah, they say that it's a pretty good tool to learn how to DJ on, and you can. I'm not sure. I have an Oculus. I've had an Oculus since last year, and we're launching 2 VR nightclubs. They're in soft launch right now. We just got to hang some artwork on the wall, get it up there. Your interview will be right up there on the wall. People will be able to walk in and watch it in their Oculus. It's gonna be dope. And yeah, we're super excited because VR has so many opportunities. I got into something like my mom when I got my Oculus and I bought it. 2 days later, I bought my mom and my dad one. My dad's 86 years old. My mom's 70 years old. My dad's like, oh, okay, cool. He gets it kind of. But my mom is like, I don't want to play video games. I'm like, Mom, it's so much more than video games.
Right.
There's so much more you can do. You can go in and watch a movie with friends. You can go to church. You can go explore. You can meet with your metaphysical people. You could just meet people and go explore crazy worlds and have fun, or watch movies instead of watching on your TV at home, watch them the size of an IMAX theater, like
to that point. Like one thing I was actually saying this weekend when we were at the Mirage was I think they might have had it the same setup when you were there, but the production and the lighting and audio booth is probably 50 yards back from the stage, but you could still walk behind it if you're in the crowd. And looking in, like they have a camera shooting directly straight, and they have a few cameras for different angles for probably like for content purposes and all that. And I said, like, for the past few times that I've been there, because I've gone maybe 2-3 times this summer, like at what point are we going to start like streaming nights, right? So like if you're in Seattle and you can't get to the Mirage for lane 8, can I pay $50, get access to that? Because they were doing something similar. I think it was with either the NBA or the NFL, and it was like, you basically buy like a perfect view of like the 50-yard line and then go down each side of the field to the court, depending on what you're watching, and get like this immersive experience. And I was saying to my friend, I'm like, there's so many DJs that we don't get the chance to see because either they're not based here or just their tour schedule is not permitting it at the time. That like I would gladly pay like $50 to $100 to watch the full show from like your couch. You have a few people over, you have a few drinks. It's like, why wouldn't you?
Or you set up a bunch of, they've done this in Japan. They do this with the Oculus. You can go and they set up a couple 360 cameras around. You can go to different points in the recording and then look around like you're at that point. Some of them will be backstage, like next to the DJ booth. Some will be out in the crowd, and you can do that. And the problem with this is, and I've looked into this extensively, is I've talked to, it's the credit card processing for it. They can only block it off at the country level. They can't block. So let's say I'm in Seattle and I'm going to stream a show live. What a lot of these venues do is they say, well, we don't want to stream live because then people are going to sit at home and watch it. They're not going to come to the club and buy beers, which is totally stupid in my opinion in the first place. Because if you're doing a good show, you're going to have 200 people come. You're still making a residual off selling ticket sales online. Or you could say, hey, we're only going to do this online if we hit 90% ticket sales.
Right.
You can buy a reservation.
You have to look at your audience. Like I think the person that's going to show up and buy drinks and be there in person, regardless of whether it's available to them. Like if I know someone is 2 seconds away on the train that I want to see, I'm going to go on the train and I'm going to go pay to get in the venue and I'm going to see them and try and network with them and hang out with them over watching it on the couch. You know what I mean? So I just think you're also just working against 2 different types of people. Either they're not there because of some reason, like maybe they can't get out. Maybe there's a physical constraint and they need to be home, or it's just not readily available to them. Like they're 9 hours away or something. So I think they have to learn how to get over those hurdles too. And I mean, even if you look at it, like they could black it out in certain areas too. So if you're within a 25-mile radius, block out the stream.
That's the problem is the way the pay gates happen right now.
Yeah.
You can't block it. You can't go to zip code specific. You can't go city specific. You can't go state specific. It's either the entire US or nothing. And I can do Germany, Austria, United States. It's not going to play there, but all the other countries are open to have a play in. And it's. I'm hoping the technology will get there. I know it will get there. Will be lockdowns
in the beginning. This is also new,
because a lot of artists might say, "Hey, like if we did a live stream, I might say, okay, we're going to stream it, but I don't want it within a 250-mile radius of this nightclub or a 200-mile radius of this club. You can't watch it. So if your credit card number goes in and your zip code goes in with that credit card number, you're not going to be able to buy this. Sorry, not available for you. Come down to the damn show."
It's like anything else. You just got to get over those first few hurdles, I feel like. Yeah. You look at the way technology's like helped us like collaborate in the industry, work on tracks together, work on mix shows together. in the beginning, all the technology was a mess, right? We couldn't get our heads around it. Now it's like I remember buying like a Newmark Mix 2, I think it was called, and it was just like the 2-channel CD player, and I beat that thing to the ground. And it's like if you told me now, like I could show up at a club like with a USB stick, I would say you're out of your mind. So it's growing pains with the technology.
Yeah, and then the one big thing that we're looking forward to is obviously with Meta working on their Project Aria, and then the eyeglass, if that's what Apple's going to call it, coming out. Google's probably working on something. Sony, Microsoft, a bunch of other companies are working on that augmented reality experience. Imagine going into Brooklyn Mirage and now you're putting on glasses and you're having a total augmented reality experience where there's signs and billboards and virtual fireworks and stuff going off, but you're there playing on the decks and you could hit a button and right there it pops up a sign that says, buy this track now.
Yeah.
And you just go, boop, or buy this merchandise right now, and then it's already in your inbox or it's already sent to your front door, and you're just there with your augmented reality glasses on. Or it's going to be some really kick-ass shit coming out over the next 2 to 5 years.
Like every 5 years, like I feel super old because I'm trying to figure out half this new shit too, and it's you want to talk about how exponentially fast things evolve. It's like we're living in it right now. We're seeing it every single day.
Yeah,
I think honestly that a lot of horrible things happened during COVID, right? But I think one of the good technological advancements is how do we communicate when we're not together? Yeah. The QR code, even though it's been around for however many years, like actually the utility went through the roof and people realized you could actually use it for something. So it's like there were a few things that actually came out of it that we're probably better off for in the long run.
Dude, I was using QR codes back in 2009, 2010, and people thought I was insane. I'm like, this is gonna be the wave of the future.
I don't know what it was. I remember I used to have a QR code like on the back of my snowboard.
Yeah,
that would like link to I think it linked to like my Instagram and my YouTube or something. And then people would ask like, what is that? Now it's like if you want to order a drink at the bar, you got to know how to use a QR code.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And I was telling people, I'm also in an advertising company. And like, look, old school telephone number, current website, future QR code. The ones that get it, you can track each one of those. Who calls in, who goes to a web page, landing page, and who snaps that QR code. You can track all that in and see which one's working for your B2C, for your B2C marketing. So yeah, I just love the fact that QR codes are out there everywhere now. Everywhere.
Wow. It's wild.
I even told my friend who's a DJ, I said, don't wear, like, I love Mackie. They're one of our great sponsors, but I said, look, if you're going to DJ in the DJ booth, just make a shirt and put a QR code on the front of your shirt. Or if you're going to be putting visuals up on behind you on the screen with your name on it, make it a QR code.
Yeah, or like all like everyone using Serato, or like people who bring laptops to gigs, they're all over the laptops and everything. It's just
put it on the back of the laptop right there. It's like everyone knows what to do with that, and you'll get follows out of the audience vicariously because they're gonna pull up their camera and it's gonna go, oh, would you like to open this website up? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And you need to do it now too, because now more than ever, it's like your audience, your following, what you can basically prove online. It's more valuable than it ever was. So. It's almost like if you're not doing that, you're really putting yourself at a huge disadvantage. So at some level, you need to be, aggregating what you can from a crowd, getting people to follow you, getting some type of hype at every single chance that you get. Because if you're at a show and you have hundreds of people literally standing in front of you, if you don't walk away and have at least one person follow you, there's an issue there. You know what I mean?
Exactly my point. You couldn't have said it better right there, Michael. I've been having a great conversation with you. Got to wrap things up here a little bit. Is there anything you want to let our DJ Sessions fans know about before we let you go?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I have more music coming out on Syrup for sure. I have a big October release and I have a big November release as well. I got some stuff already planned in the works for next year. I definitely have a lot of live shows too. So if you basically follow me on any of my socials, though it's usually laid out from an events perspective, where I'm going to be, what's coming out, what you can expect next. And I'm just really excited for the future, man. Like I would love to come on in a year and let you know what's been going on since then, and if we're in the metaverse yet, and all that craziness.
We do it better than that. We stay in touch with everyone every 6 months.
There you go.
We'll be staying in touch with you for the foreseeable future. Every 6 months we'll be like, Michael, what are you up to? Michael, what are you up to? And the best place for people to go to find out more information about you, would that be? Right
That would
there.
be the website. Yeah, if you go to my website, michaelanthonymusic.com, you'll have links to all the socials on there. So you can go to my Instagram, Twitter. Nowadays, I think Instagram's kind of king. So if you go on there, you follow me. If you're ever where I'm playing a show or you're another artist, you want to collab, shoot me a message. I'm always open. If I can find it in the DMs, I'll always answer back.
I am still trying to wrap my head around TikTok. I get it. I make my food videos there. I haven't translated it to my brand. I mean, I put this on my branded DJ Sessions TikTok page, the food videos, but I'm still trying to get the social media team dialed in so we can start putting up little snippets of the interviews and get those up there.
TikTok is big, man. You got to keep
TikTok,
working on
Instagram.
TikTok.
Yeah, it's awesome. We actually use a service called Hello Wolfie, which is amazing to help manage all of our social media outreach. And everyone on my team, every resident DJ is on Hello Wolfie, so I can push stuff to their accounts. They can push it to their socials. It's a really awesome product. I check it out. Hello Wolfie.
Yeah, I can definitely check that out.
Amazingly priced and lots of bang for the buck. But again, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the DJ Sessions today. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me, Dan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. On that note, don't forget to go to our website, thedjsessions.com. Find us on TikTok, Instagram, Meta, Twitter, Twitch, everywhere out there. Thedjsessions.com. You can even find us on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Google Play, and soon to be Apple TV through our mobile app and our VR nightclubs in Altspace at thedjsessions.com. I'm Darren, coming to you from the virtual studios in Seattle, Washington. That's Michael Anthony coming in from NYC. That's right, the big New York, the Big Apple. Gosh, do they still call it that? Do people still call it the Big Apple anymore?
People call it a lot of things, but as long as you call it New York, that's all I care about.
I can't wait to get out there. I'll have to visit you when I come out there next time.
Yeah, let me know. We'll do something at the Mirage. We'll link up.
Absolutely, Michael. Looking forward to it. Thanks for coming on the show today.
You got it, Darren. Have a good one.
And remember, on the DJ Sessions, the music never stops.